Donald Trump's re-election is likely to also transform U.S. policy in the Middle East, and many are asking what that could mean for Israel and the Palestinians. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he aims to strengthen his country's close ties with the U.S. during Trump's second term.
We will continue to defend our state, our citizens in all arenas and against any threat. Primarily the Iranian threat. In the last few days, I spoke 3 times with President-elect Donald Trump. These were very good and important conversations. Talks designed to further tighten the strong alliance between Israel and the United States. We see eye to eye on the Iranian threat, on all its components and the danger posed by it. We also see the great opportunities before Israel in the field of peace and its expansion and in other fields.
Let's bring in Giorgio Cafiero to take a closer look. He's an expert on international relations and the CEO of the consultancy firm Gulf State Analytics. Giorgio, welcome to DW. What do you make of Netanyahu's statement that he and Trump see the Iranian threat, quote, eye to eye?
Yeah, thank you for having me on your program. Good to be with you. Obviously, if we remember back to Trump's first administration, he imposed the so-called maximum pressure campaign on Iran. His administration had a very Israel-centered foreign policy in the Middle East, and those policies obviously sat very well with Netanyahu's government. I think Netanyahu and those around him in Israel are certainly hoping that Trump will come back and sort of impose a maximum pressure 2.0 campaign, if you will, on Iran, further align U.S. foreign policy with the interests of the Israeli government. And I think it's no secret that throughout the 2024 race, Netanyahu was very much hoping that Trump would win. And right now, the Israeli prime minister is very pleased with the outcome of this month's election.
Yeah, it's an entirely different situation right now, though, for Israel. There are many fires burning in the Middle East right now. So in the past, during one of the debates, actually, Trump said that he would give Netanyahu everything he needs to finish the job, he said, in Gaza. And he now reportedly wants the war in Gaza to be over by the time he takes office. Where do you see this going in the months ahead? What does that mean for Gaza?
Well, first of all, before even attempting to answer this question, we have to point out that Trump is an incredibly unpredictable type of leader. And so trying to predict what he's going to do after he returns to the Oval Office in January is extremely difficult. I think a few points to keep in mind is that Trump really likes to present himself as sort of a deal maker and someone who's capable of resolving conflicts. He speaks this way about the war in Ukraine, and he's also spoken this way about the conflicts in Gaza and Lebanon. We all remember the sort of rhetoric he was using on the campaign trail when appealing to Arab American and Muslim American voters in Michigan, one of the key battleground states. I think Trump would like to see the conflicts in Gaza and Lebanon wrap up before he enters the White House or soon after he returns to the Oval Office. I think he sort of views these as just kind of foreign policy disasters that he doesn't really want to have on his desk once his second term begins. I think there are tough questions to consider about the extent to which he might change U.S. foreign policy toward Israel and the Palestinian question from the way in which the Biden administration has been dealing with Israel-Palestine. I'm quite skeptical that Trump would start conditioning aid to Israel or put any pressure on Israel. But at the same time, we need to consider that Netanyahu humiliated Biden a lot during Biden's presidency. Donald Trump, whatever you think about him, he doesn't like to have either his friends or his enemies make him look weak. There have also been some sources of tension between Trump and Netanyahu, and I don't think that those are going to go away. And a final point I'll add here is that the leadership of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, with Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh, Mohammed bin Zayed in Abu Dhabi, these leaders want to see the U.S. rein in Israel's military actions. And they have a lot of influence with Trump. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if some of Trump's closest friends in the Gulf might be able to convince him to take a little bit more of a balanced stance toward the Israelis and Palestinians. I'm not particularly optimistic, but right now we're in a mode of observing what's going on, and we have to certainly be open to different possibilities.
Okay, so I will ask you to look into the crystal ball briefly again just now, but not looking at Donald Trump, someone maybe a little more predictable, Joe Biden. Until the end of January, the U.S. are stuck with him as a lame duck president. Is there any way for them to still influence the situation in the Middle East before Biden leaves the White House?
Well, at any moment, the Biden administration could restrict arms sales to Israel. Up until Biden leaves the White House in January, he's going to be in charge of U.S. foreign policy. And so he will have the ability to restrict Israel's activities. Whether or not he chooses to use that leverage is another question. But obviously, the political situation in the U.S. is now completely different, given that we're done with this month's presidential election.
Yeah.
So trying to help his vice president win this race is no longer a factor. I don't think we can expect anything like that from Biden, though.
Okay.
I think he will continue giving unconditional support to Israel until he leaves.
We'll have to leave it there.
We'll see.
We're out of time. Giorgio Cafiero, thank you so much.